Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Taurus and your moon in Cancer. And we're talking about the elements of earth and water, which are harmonious. But even within that harmony, and by the way, if your sun and moon are within a certain degree span, they will form a beneficial angle called a sextile. I shouldn't really say beneficial because even something that is challenging, like a square opposition, can be beneficial in its own way. But it's a cooperative angle, let's put it like that. But that's not true of every person who has this combination. But regardless, I do think that the sun and moon are on the same page in certain respects, having this combination. But the only thing that I would say that is a little bit challenging, regardless, is the fact that with your sun in Taurus, you're coming from a place. This is your aspirational self. This is what you want to become in this lifetime, is whatever Taurus represents. So Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It rules the second house of money and possessions and self-esteem. So a person who, and is ruled by Venus, Taurus. So a Taurus person tends to be down to earth, pun intended. It's not really a pun, it's the truth. And such a person is going to tend to be sensible, going to tend to be good with material resources. It's like they're born with this ability to manage the resources of this material world. And of course, there are outliers. So everything that I say is always a generalization. That should go without saying. Obviously, there are people that are born under certain signs, like Virgos who are messy. If I want to pick on Virgos, or Virgos that are sex machines. Although that isn't necessarily, against the typical Virgo person behind the scenes. So maybe that's not a good example. But anyway, I digress. The point is that this will more likely occur than not, that the Taurus person has a very practical approach to life, and that they tend to be unpretentious. Because it's the second sign of the zodiac, it's the first earth sign. So it's very much what you see is what you get. And you will find that, well, I'm talking like you're not a Taurus, but if you're listening for somebody who is a Taurus and you're not a Taurus, you will find that they have a tendency to be very disdainful of people who put on airs, who act in an arrogant fashion. Because to a Taurus person, that's being fake. That's being, full of themselves. It's not so much the ego as much as it is the artifice, the fake quality of it. So that's all well and good, and just the fact that you are down to earth means that emotionally, just the sign of Taurus tends to approach emotions like I think all earth signs do, and air signs in their own way as well, from a position of, logical inquiry. So in other words, having an emotion doesn't automatically produce a reaction. It's kind of like, oh, wow, look, I'm experiencing this. So there's a sense of detachment to some degree. And yet, in this particular case, your moon is in Cancer. The moon can represent our emotional self and self-expression, how we feel in general, but how we show emotions to other people. Now, another thing that the moon can represent is what our safety needs are. And what can happen with this moon sign in particular, because it is in Cancer, which by the way is ruled by the moon, is that the person can be very much the worrywart, the person who wants that security. Cancer rules the fourth house of home and family. So this kind of person has a very protective nature, self-protective. In other words, your emotions might feel like they are raw and possibly in danger of being trampled on at any moment. And so you may have a very how would I put it, a very cautious nature. Cancers tend to be cautious. Even Taurus people can be cautious, but emotionally, and even like this combination can be quite shy. Look to the rising sign to see if in public situations, if you behave differently. For instance, if you have a fire ascendant, so Aries, Leo, or Sag, you may at least project a more confident aura, and that is enough to get you through certain situations. But I think that this combination of sun and moon is much more of a homebody type of person than somebody who likes to go out on the town, paint the town red. You're much more of a person who likes to be in an intimate setting, in a very personal setting to you, your own home, somebody else's home. You're very family oriented. And so it's like the familiar is comforting, because Cancer is very sentimental. So, gosh, this combination can really be in love with the past. And there's a very traditional streak in you. Again, if you have like Aquarius rising, you might look like a hippie, but that's actually what happened with Janis Joplin. She had Aquarius rising. Now her sun was very close to Aquarius, but it was technically officially in Capricorn, and her moon was in Cancer. So she had a very homebody part of herself, even though she was on stage and she was traveling. She was quite the homebody, and she loved, I think she sewed, she did, those feminine things. And yet she had that kind of an exterior that was very ballsy, wild, untamed, that kind of Aquarius rebellious energy. But that wasn't her true self. And, it's this is why it's so fascinating, because we can project certain qualities that really, I think that it's a defense mechanism, or there's another term. I think it is conditioning also from childhood too, like maybe the family of origin, like how are they shaping you. Now, if you have a rising sign that is an earth or water, then it's going to be very harmonious with your sun and moon, and chances are you're going to be this solid individual that is very home oriented and very traditional, family oriented. If you have that kind of a what we would call a something that I was thinking of, like a curveball, but I can't think of the word that I'm looking for. But something that takes a detour. So, like I said, Aquarius, maybe Sagittarius, or something like that, where the person, you might come across in a way that's very hard for other people to understand. So you might contradict yourself, in other words, and they think, oh, wow, he or she is one way, but they turn out to be a different way when they get to know you better. And so anyway, going back to the moon being in Cancer, you will tend to be very interested in nurturing. This is like a motherly energy. Cancer rules the mother. But even if you're a man, this can be the case. This is double feminine, sun and moon, which has nothing to do with gender. As a matter of fact, sometimes men who have feminine signs can be hyper masculine or men's men, where they tend to be into sports and they like are always with their buddies and stuff like that. But you will notice certain things where the feminine comes out. They may be homebodies. They may love to cook. That things are tool around the house. They may be very connected to their family of origin, or they are a devoted dad. And that's where you see it come out. But they still may have that macho exterior. So it has nothing to do with how a man presents himself, but it's really what their orientation is as far as what their the things that they care about. So it will tend to be the traditional values, the home and family, and all of that good stuff. I was going to say, but I'm American, apple pie and all that. I actually like strawberry rhubarb pie. Apple is kind of boring and standard, but apple's good too. Okay, so taken separately, what could possibly, I was going to say, what could possibly go wrong? Well, like I said, I think Taurus wants to be very kind of anchored in itself because it is a fixed sign. The problem with Cancer, and especially in the moon position, because the moon can indicate fluctuations, and therefore it can indicate someone who, especially since the moon is in Cancer, may be moody. Maybe their mood fluctuates. If the moon is exalted in Taurus. So, I believe I really don't know why. Somebody told me, one of the commenters told me, I think, but I do think that part of it is because Taurus is Earth and also that it's a fixed sign. So it has that capacity as the rock, maybe that other people look to as somebody who's emotionally stable. And so I'm not saying that having the moon in Cancer will make you emotionally unstable, but you may have to accept the fact that you have a tendency to shift moods. And because of this, you have to be gentle with yourself without being self-indulgent. Without, sometimes we have to kind of tell ourselves that, okay, you sulked about this, you're pissed off about that, now it's time to, get over it, that kind of thing. Because there's really this quality within Cancer to feel sorry for oneself and to be manipulative sometimes with other people, because there is Cancer is a cardinal water sign. So the water is emotions, and the cardinal modality is about taking charge of situations. So there's an aggressive quality in Cancer that some people may not really detect at first, where the person is very aggressive about getting their emotional needs met sometimes. And that can be to the detriment of the relationship, because they may be with a person who is, let's say, a person has the sun or moon in Cancer, and they're with somebody who's an Aquarius, who's like runs away or recoils at emotional demands placed on them. That's going to be counterproductive. So, and I remember remarking once on a video that, talking about Cancer and Aquarius and saying if anybody actually, could be in that type of relationship, because I said this is a real oddball relationship between two people of those signs. And I got somebody to write to me and said, I've been with my partner for 30 years and one of us is Cancer, one is Aquarius. So stranger things have happened for sure. But it's really about The Taurus part of yourself, not being afraid of your emotions, not being, but also not being self-indulgent of them either. This combination can be very possessive in love because um, Taurus is, known for being possessive, and Cancer is clingy emotionally, meaning that they want to always be in contact with that person. Sometimes, if other factors are cooperating, they may be very smothering, emotionally smothering. And so that can, be a self fulfilling prophecy, creating exactly what they don't want. So it's very important to get this in check with yourself. Even if you're married and you have that legal document and you think, like, hey, I get to demand that my partner never cheat on me, fall in love with somebody else, yada, yada. I mean, obviously, that's not what we want if we are in love with somebody else. But the more that somebody tries to control these situations, the more likely I think they are to occur. Now, if you're with someone who is untrustworthy, then duh, it's what did you expect to happen when you get married, that you thought that person would change their tune? People who don't abide by, you know, agreements are not going to change because of a marriage license. So, or a ceremony. So sometimes it is poor judgment that puts somebody in that situation. And in that case, your best, uh, decision would probably be to just cut your losses and move on and not just invest more time in something that is just draining. But obviously, there are, there are extenuating circumstances sometimes where that's not going to happen. But this can make for a delightfully romantic individual who is great at giving gifts, and probably, knowing Taurus, likes to give gifts, but there's a definite like personalized touch to it that makes the person like particularly good at it. And it's going to be very sentimental. It's not going to be just like, oh, I'm going to get this person a box of chocolates or something, or like a dozen roses. They might do that. You might do that just because that's a certain ritual, but if it's like for the birthday or something, you're going to really hone in on what the essence is of that other person. And that can be very, something that's very touching to that other individual. Chances are you're going to want to raise a family. In the tarot, the Empress card is connected to Taurus, and it features a pregnant woman, at least in one of the decks that I have. And it's one of the key words is, motherhood. And Cancer is the sign of motherhood. And when I say motherhood, I'm talking about even fathers, but hands-on fathers, maybe even stay-at-home fathers who do the bulk of the nurturing. As a matter of fact, you may marry. I think that this combination definitely trends towards getting legally married than shacking up, because you are going to tend to be more traditional. Um, but one of the motivating factors may be wanting to start a family more than, maybe some other sign that's like very important to you. In terms of careers, I would look at anything that involves children. Even like babies, I really think of water signs as getting involved in the healthcare profession, or and earth too, I should say. So maybe being a nurse, the word nurturing, nurse, maybe in OBGYN, an obstetrician, what do you call it? Either like working in the nursery, with the babies, or maybe becoming a midwife. Taurus has innate understanding of everything material, so that would include the body and the sciences, perhaps. So that would also favor healthcare. Also, in the restaurant industry, maybe you would want to start a restaurant or be a chef. Both Taurus and Cancer are associated with food because the second house, I don't know if the second house that Taurus rules is food stuffs. So the food itself, like because it's part of the material nature, and then the fourth house being more the food that nurtures us. So that's a possibility. Those are the two fields that I could think of, like first and foremost. Anything artistic, because Taurus is ruled by Venus and Cancer is a water sign. So maybe like music and things like that. Also, in the intuitive arts, because Cancer is a water sign, like a spiritual healer, especially like a Reiki master or a shamanic healer. Definitely a shamanic healer. Some of these things can be seen by the placements in the charts, in the chart of like where the person's sun is and all of that. So, yeah, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.